Thank you very much. Thank you and hello, dear guests, partners in the broad sense, and all the people who are responsible for Lithuania's welfare and the state of welfare that we're all trying to create. Today, the Minister of the Environment is not supposed to speak about the economy because we are like a system of safeguards who have to sometimes movements. So I'll start with the darker shades and will then turn to the brighter ones. But I'd like, of course, I have a presentation. If somebody helps me with the technical issues to change slides. We're all talking about the tipping point or the breakthrough. The tipping point will be next Wednesday in Brussels when 12 legal acts will be published about how the Green Deal will be implemented. Some documents have already been leaked, and as ministers we are talking in favor or against, but everything will be published, beginning with the forest strategy, biodiversity, carbon import tax and so on. Why is Europe, why are we doing that? Because we've realized that the economic model based on which the world operates is not sustainable. And my initial slides are namely about that, because the business has to solve problems, but it also has to know what problems have been created here by us living around the Baltic state. And thanks to the organizers of this event, Agri-Food Lithuania, who've identified the Baltic Sea as the fourth most polluted sea in the world. A lot of people are living around, a lot of people are using the sea. The sea is also very shallow. And indeed, in the Baltic Sea, we have zones, for example, as big as the territory of Lithuania that are without any life, without oxygen. We have deprived the Baltic Sea of life, and the pollution there is increasing. And there are three industrial polluters, industrial pollution, agriculture, and people with their waste waters. And we see that in this rather shallow sea, we have polluted so much, let alone the chemical weapons that have been sunk at the coasts of Sweden. But we have to talk about our anthropogenic pollution. And if we were to estimate how many more phosphates and nitrates are dumped into the Baltic Sea, in the perspective, it might just happen that we will lose our fish, and probably salmon and other similar fish will be banned from fishing in the offshore areas of the Baltic Sea. Cod fishing has already been banned. So this means that we are exhausting our opportunities. We are depriving our children of the possibilities to bathe in the clean Baltic Sea. The deepest point of the Baltic Sea is 440 meters, so it is very shallow, and the water circulation is very slow. The water is renewed every 30 years. So one drop of diesel fuel is floating in the ecosystem for so long that it can kill a lot of life. And here we have to admit that not everything is in order in Klaipėda as well. In terms of the port of Klaipėda as a green port, and there we'll have a separate presentation, we have to identify the problems that the port is gigantic chain of logistics, handling a lot of fertilizers, which once in the water are very dangerous because as a nutrient, fertilizers affect ecosystems. Also oil products that are hard to clean, oil spills contaminate large areas too. So we have key problems related to the increasing flows of logistics, which in turn increase the risk, the systemic risk of huge accidents. And sometimes even one drop can cause a lot of damage. One loaded ton globally means 25 grams of oil leaked into the ecosystems. So we must realize that if we want to grow, we have to identify the big risks and realize that we have to deal with them parallelly, especially in a record year as last year for the port of Klaipėda, with which I want to congratulate you. I believe that this is a successful project of a public and private partnership. We also have to identify that the Baltic Sea is not equally polluted everywhere. For example, at the shore of Klaipėda, we can see the water transparency is 1.5 meter. However, at the coast of Sweden, the water clarity is 8 meters. So whatever comes in through this channel is the Nemunas basin pollution collected throughout Lithuania. And that comes to the Curonian Lagoon and the Baltic Sea. So I don't know, the mayor probably knows about the cleanliness of the Baltic Sea at the Lithuanian coast and the Curonian Lagoon. And the green water is not standard at other coasts of the Baltic Sea. So eutrophication around Lithuania is quite a frequent thing, and here we have to spend no effort to improve the situation. And here I'd like to mention business. There are problems with the business. We know about the scandal of Klaipėda, 2 kilometers away from here. It happened, and this makes us rethink the industrial processes, even the legal ones. And with pollution permits, they are not all adequately organized, let alone hidden pollution, which has to be prevented as a criminal activity by inspectors and the population. This is sad news, but one of the port companies, even after the Grigeo case several years ago, committed 3 environmental offenses and is now running the risk of losing their permit. Now we are looking into the public interest and the grounds. But the signal is that in the port of Klaipėda, we have to improve how we deal with things. But there are good companies, well-working companies, such as Klaipėdos Nafta. Sometimes, as environmentalists, we don't want to have a lot to do with oil, but we must not ignore the fact that it exists and it will exist after 2050 when our continent is going to become climate neutral. But oil, gas will be used then too. Only we'll have more technologies absorbing CO2. But the investment like in Klaipėdos Nafta into specific equipment, the expensive co-investments, they absorb the pollution. And the Bega terminal is another good example. It is also included in the European best technological practice examples. We do have orderly terminals that could serve as an example to the whole of Europe. That are visited by colleagues from other European ports. And now, turning to the brighter colors. As a Minister of Economy, I first of all have to scare you a little and then to inspire you. As I said, next Wednesday, Europe is going to introduce the 12 legal acts, and one of them is going to be about the development of environmental pollution permits into the sea and the road sector. Is going to mean a lot of changes to the sector of the logistics, because this sector will now have the possibility to rapidly switch to non-polluting technologies. And now and the emission trading allowances are quite expensive now, and it is quite profitable now to invest into non-polluting clean technologies. So the Port of Klaipėda and all logistics experts have to monitor closely this development, because in the development of the emission trading allowances into the port, into the sea and road sector will mean a tipping point. Some cargoes will be diverted to the rails, some to the sea, but the most profitable profitable and winning ones will be the ones that will invest into alternative fuel sources. And the queues that are now forming at the port of Klaipėda, although this is one of the greener ports around the Baltic shore, a lot of cargo arrives by rail, but we still have to try to divert the cargo on rail or by sea. But here we have only 100% of 100 kilometers of the Lithuanian shoreline, and all the interests, both trade, business, and recreational and tourism, are focused. And my wish to Lithuania and to the Curonian spit is to become the first climate neutral zone in Europe, and we are ready to help with the money and consultations. We have a lot of good examples around the Baltic Sea, and I believe that these things are quite tempting, because the city of Klaipėda is an example of an industrial city where we also have a UNESCO heritage object and the national park. And this synthesis, this synergy is possible if we evaluate our environmental impact correctly. We have perspectives in wind energy. Virgis Poderys will elaborate on this, but we must understand that this means an additional load for the port of Klaipėda and a job creation. On average, as calculated, offshore wind system, 1 megawatt creates 10 steady jobs. And if we're talking about 1,300 megawatt in this decade in the Baltic Sea, this means 13,000 new jobs as compared with 90 employees in Klaipėda. These figures are quite significant, and all of these jobs are going to be here. Wind energy is going to provoke hydrogen transformation, because waves, incoherent wind means that we'll have to produce hydrogen that will have to be transported to other sectors. There will be more detail on that, and we are deciding and choosing a place of a hydrogen hub to make it liquefied, and Klaipėda will be able to make a transition to new technologies for fuel, and this could mean significant progress if we see synergy between wind energy and hydrogen. And the Energy Institute is starting a practical tests from the Modernization Fund. Together with the Ministry of Energy, we have allocated about 270 million euros that will be allocated to develop hydrogen technologies in Lithuania. And I believe that the largest part of this money could be used here in Klaipėda. And the last point I'd like to highlight is what we don't see. Many of you are leaders of your organizations, business leaders, rectors of universities, but small and medium enterprises are fueled by tourism. And in Lithuania, we are too small to let pass such projects as the port of Šventoji, which is 35-40 million euro worth. We are designing plans about focusing financing. This is a huge billion worth industry that could feed families of those living by the sea, as well as SMEs. But we are not going to be able to use this potential if we do not increase the awareness of the society. I have already mentioned the corporate responsibility of the possible negative impact on the environment. There's been a hiking tour throughout the Curonian Spit, and a group of enthusiasts have collected a lot of rubbish. You can see the fishing nets, as well as our festive and picnic waste. So my wish is that we involve the society as much as possible into this. The Ministry of the Environment is working hand in hand with shore municipalities. We are implementing a number of projects. However, I must admit that many aspects are regulated internationally. And my last slide is about our partnership with the European Maritime Agency, which I'm very proud of. We have had a drone here. It was flying for a whole month over the Baltic Sea, measuring the quality of fuel of ships. Up to the radius was up to 90%. It could fly over the chimney of the ship and measure the pollution and the quality of the fuel. And to finish with, I do hope that these two animals, the Baltic cod and the Baltic seal, that are rare guests at our shores, will become more widespread and will provide joy to us and our children that could enjoy the seals. This is our common responsibility. Thank you.